The AFC is in chaos, part of which is because the Raiders are in chaos. Damon Arnette, their 2020 first round pick, has been cut from the team. We also find out that Jimmy Lake, head coach of the Washington Huskies, has been suspended for the next game for an incident that happened during the Oregon game. Boy, oh boy, this is a mess. Kyle Shanahan, we have real questions about him at this point in time. I think that they are fair to ask about quote unquote boy genius. The Astroworld Festival turns into chaos. 8 people are dead, at least as of right now. And like, what does this mean? Are we done with festivals? Is this an event? What the hell is going on? And Big Bird ends up in Ted Cruz's crosshairs, in Cancun Ted's crosshairs. Boy, oh boy, that's canceler consequence. And we may have another special canceler consequence as well. I'm George Wrighster. He's Ralph Amsden. And this is Wrighster or Wrong, the intersection where sports, business, society, and pop culture meet the truth. Absolute fire on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Facts only. Make sure you check your feelings at the door because no BS is allowed. We keep it 100. You guys can always shoot us a text message, 818-293-7547. That's 818-293-7547. Or you can shoot us an email, I'm mad, IMMAD @unafraidshow.com. And make sure that you leave a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a review, all of that. We need them. Keep the show growing. So, Ralph, we will start today with the news that just broke. Actually, do you want to do the NFL news that just broke or the college football news that just broke?
Ooh, that is a great question. I think you seem to want to get in on this NFL stuff, so let's talk about it.
Well, for me, I am going to choose. Well, I can't hear you right now, Ralph.
You can't hear me?
No.
Oh my gosh. All right. How about now?
Oh, this is awkward.
Are we back?
Is it me? Say something.
Check. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Because your volume was registering, but that was clearly my fault. I turned the volume down on you.
Did you mute me? You muted me. That's gaslighting. Like, Ralph, I can't hear you. I'm like, I'm here.
Okay. So what did you say? Because I missed it.
I said you seem to want to get in on this NFL stuff, so let's go for
it. I was gonna choose the other one, but that's fine.
Okay.
All right. So we will choose the Damon Arnette story. So Damon Arnette, Raiders cornerback, 2020 first round pick. I said, this dude is trying to give Mike Mayock a freaking heart attack. I mean, imagine he's the Raiders general manager. Imagine what his life has been like. So he already has to deal with the John Gruden situation. Actually, to go back, and mind you, this should not be a big deal, but it was that Carl Nassib came out as the first openly gay football player. So as a team, when that happens, you understand that you're going to have to do certain things and make sure that you're sensitive to the subject. You're probably going to have to do some PR around it. All of these things. Okay, fine. That's the least of the things that has happened. Next, the John Gruden emails come out. You got to fire your head coach in the middle of the season. And then, obviously, the Henry Ruggs situation last week where he killed a person driving 156 miles an hour. And then there is just in the same week, you have Damon Arnette posting this on his Instagram.
That shit 5 minutes away. Pull up, lame ass nigga. I swear to God, I will kill you, nigga. On everything I love, I will kill you, nigga. You talking crazy. Talking about that shit in 5 minutes.
So he got into it with somebody on Instagram, and he decided that his response was to flash guns and multiple guns at the person and be like, "Yo, I'll kill you. Come over here. You 5 minutes away. Come over here. I'll kill you." Bro, what? Oh, God, dude. Okay, so last week, when talking about the Henry Ruggs situation, I talked about where I've driven extremely fast before when I was young and felt invincible, all of these things. So I kind of more and and obviously there was no defending it because it was reckless when I did it. I am just absolutely thankful that and blessed that nothing bad happened to me or anybody else in the situation, and I didn't do it after that. But this, I can't understand this, Ralph. Like, this makes no sense to me, especially after the Henry Ruggs situation. You didn't think at 1 second, like, bro, these are Instagram people trying to troll you. Why are you bothering yourself with what these people, what this person has to say about fighting you? Bro, like, you're an NFL player. You have bigger fish to fry. Plus, you know what the temperature in the room is. You cannot be flashing guns saying that you're going to kill somebody. I don't understand, Ralph. I do not.
Yeah, I don't understand even being in that situation where you would need where you would need that type of artillery and you would readily have it within reach when you're in the middle of an online disagreement. I hate this for him. I think he's got a young son. Hopefully not with him in the house with, just AR-15 hanging around. But this is somebody that the Raiders really believed in, like, a lot, so much so that even though ESPN had Damon Arnette rated as the number 58 overall prospect coming into the 2020 NFL draft, they still took him at number 19 overall. They reached 40 spots. How many players? I mean, obviously the Raiders are going to go after whoever they go after regardless, but how many players can say that they were picked 40 spots over where, all the experts believed that they'd be picked and given first round money to throw it away for what? What was the point of that? I don't understand. Somebody just talking trash online gets to you. That was it because they were nearby? Was it because he was stressed out? And at the same time,
bro,
like,
it's pride, dude. This is the thing that causes not just professional athletes. This is the thing that causes men to fall a lot, which is pride. And I remember when I came out in the draft, that was when 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying came out. And he had a line in there that I was like, that I felt said, "Niggas don't rob me. They know I'm down to die for my chain." And I had a nice new chain where I was like, bro, if anybody try to rob me, they gonna feel this heat. And I'll do whatever to keep my respect. But as I've gotten older, and even when I was still playing, I was like, bro, I have insurance for this. Like, are you gonna talk shit online because you robbed me? Yeah, I got a new one tomorrow, bro. Like, it's that, and I understand the pride part of it, but as men, we have to understand, like, that our pride, yes, it's important, right? But what's more important? Is it your family? Is it your livelihood? So you're okay. So, like, you have to prioritize these things as it relates to your pride, because is your pride going to be high if somebody comes over and slaps your wife? Yes. Yes. Should it be high? Absolutely. Because you got to go live with her later. But should your pride be high about somebody talking shit to in your DMs? No, because now you're willing to sacrifice your livelihood, your potential safety, your career, all of these things because you want to prove that you're tough enough in an argument. Bro, like, we have to, that is the definition of toxic masculinity. That's the thing that we have to get rid of. And I like so with people that get all in their panties in a bunch. Oh God, toxic masculinity. The left trying to make men soft. No, I want men to be men, masculine, powerful. But that's not masculinity. That's pride.
Yeah, I mean, every man. I don't think men like to hear the term toxic masculinity because it makes you feel like you are bad for who you are and what you were born to be. And I think that you have to take into account the way that people receive things. And if it's not a term that is actually doing your cause any good, then you got to throw it out the window. You got to move on to language that's a little bit more understandable. At the same time, every guy on earth will tell you, and I mean, testosterone is the devil sometimes.
Yes.
It really is. Like that shit gets elevated in your bloodstream, and I mean, there's a for my church going folk, Jacob tried to fight God. Like that's what testosterone does.
Yeah, bro. It
Like,
puts you.
like Jacob came face to face with God, and his testosterone was like, fight him.
Exactly, bro. It will make you it will make you do some things that don't make any sense. I mean, like you're already like testosterone in general is like the enemy of men, and that's why men get in trouble. This is the same situation to why Henry Ruggs ended up in the situation that he was in, because testosterone makes men go, "Hey, watch this."
Yo, you're right. You're right. And that's something that, like, you want to talk about massive difference between the sexes, risk-taking behavior.
Yep.
Risk-taking behavior is one of the, like, if you want to be out there and try to say that, like, there is no difference between the gender besides the really obvious ones, like average, height, average bone density, all that stuff, whatever. But like the risk taking, the natural aversion to risk taking exists at a much higher level in women than it does in men. And go fast, skydiving, all of these like super male dominated things, using your physicality and using your ability to have your testosterone trick you into putting yourself at risk. And that's, that's just part of it. And I, there was part of that I definitely recognized myself. Like, I don't have any firearms or anything like that, but drop the address. Like,
you've done that.
Oh, you've seen me get yelled at by my wife for when somebody says that they're going to do something. I'll just say, like, all right, well, here's where you can find me. And that's just, and for a fact that, like, I'm not trying to fight, but I will lose one. I'll lose a fight to ruin your day. And and my wife hates that. She absolutely hates that, like, that I'll see how far, because the thing about testosterone is, like, it flares up in that minute, but you got to be a special kind of person for it to carry you for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And so I fully believe that people will feel a lot worse about themselves. Somebody has to drive 2 hours to come see me. About an hour into that drive, they're going to be asking themselves all sorts of questions.
No,
but you also
not meet me in Temecula, guy.
But you do have to ask yourself, like, okay, so what are my triggers? What are the things that upset me, and what kind of workarounds can I have in place to make sure that my priorities stay my priorities? I've told you this. If I wake up in a bad mood and I have to go drive somewhere, I wear slides, because I'm never in a million years going to try to fight somebody with my toes showing, ever. I just wouldn't do it. And so I have to have stuff in place. Like, you can't have your gun that accessible to where in the moment you would grab it and put it in front of your front facing camera screen and tell somebody that, like, if they show up, they're going to get got. You shouldn't. There has to be, like, you have to be able to recognize your own temperature, your own triggers, and you have to put things in place to keep your priorities your priorities.
And this is why I no longer listen to music that talks about black men killing other black men. I just can't. It exhausts me. And it also puts you in a mind frame where, like, where especially when you're younger, I think it gets less and less as you get older and more mature. You've seen more things, done more things, and but then for these young kids, they're like, nah, bro, this is what XY low NBA young boy or Chopper NLE, whoever else, that this is, yeah, man, they with it, so I'm with it. Now I gotta prove pride, but man, that pride comes before the fall.
It's so funny too, because if you ever answered one of those questions of like, oh, what are your top 5 like getting ready to come out of the tunnel songs?
Yep.
Like what 5 songs would you listen to get you up for a game? And there was a time in my youth when it was all like, Linkin Park or 50 Cent or something that would get you going. Now, if I was in that same situation at 37 years old, I'm like, all right, well, like there's some good orchestral stuff that'll help keep me centered, keep my focus long term, and make sure that I'm not too high, too low. Yep. It's maturing is really weird once you realize that some of that stuff is still great to like have fun to, but you understand that highs and lows are not the way.
Yep. No, you are 100% right. Because you need to be able to be focused and all that stuff. All right, the next thing up. So we're gonna bounce around a tad bit today because there was other big news today. So Jimmy Lake, head coach of the Washington Huskies, is our first subject of cancel or consequence today, and he was suspended by their president or athletic director, Jen Cohen, for one game for their upcoming Arizona State game. And Bob Gregory, who ironically was our DB coach at Oregon while I was there, is their defensive coordinator, and now he's their acting head coach for this game. And their wide receiver coach, Junior Adam, or quarterback coach, Junior Adams, whichever one he does, he's now being promoted to acting head coach. No. Sorry. He's being promoted to offensive coordinator. I'm sorry. I apologize. So now, is Jimmy Lake receiving consequences, or is he being canceled for this incident on the sideline during the Oregon game on Saturday? Now, mind you, it's a heated rivalry. There is all sorts of bad blood. And then Jimmy Lake this week said that they don't recruit against Oregon. They only recruit against teams with more academic prowess like Stanford and USC, even though they don't compete for the same recruits anyway. But never mind. But here is what happened, and this sparked a debate.
Pushed out of bounds at about the 25-yard line. Let's check out our Nissan Heisman watch.
So, if you weren't watching on the live stream or YouTube or Twitch, then you don't know what happened. So what happened is Jimmy Lake, a Washington and Oregon player kind of got into it. The Washington player backed up. Jimmy Lake comes running over, hits the kid in the helmet, and then the kid turns around and then he two-hand shoves him in the back. There's a lot of people who are coming out saying, oh, this is no big deal. This is just good coaching. You guys are soft. You guys are, and Ralph posted it, and he's been called a pussy like 38,000 times. And so the question is Jimmy Lake being canceled, or is he receiving consequences for what he did?
It feels like a little bit of both. Doesn't it? To me, it feels like both. Like I think that intent matters. Is Jimmy Lake the kind of guy that has this type of environment where he's using physical intimidation all the time, or in this instant did he do what he thought was best, but his emotions were running high, and upon further review, it's one of those things that as an educational institution you have to put your foot down about? Or do you believe conspiracy theorists who like this is setting them up to fire Jimmy Lake for cause?
Okay. Jimmy Lake stepped over the line here because remember, we already had this debate a few weeks ago when Mario Cristobal yelled at a player, when he yelled at Chris Hudson after he got a 15-yard penalty. He yelled at him for like 8 seconds, and then the play was over. And then the kid came back in the game. Everything was fine. Oregon wins the game. Kid speaks out about it. Cristobal speaks out about it. It's over. But now this took it a step further because if you watch that game, Jimmy Lake was clearly more animated, demonstrative, everything in that game than you have you ever seen him like that in any other game?
No. I mean, I've probably only watched him 8 or 9 times, but this was
He's usually cool as a cucumber on the sideline, even when they're losing.
Yeah, I think you had even brought that up on our other show, Pac-12 Apostles, that his emotions don't always meet the moment, and that sense of urgency has been something that University of Washington fans have been craving, especially considering the offense has had as many struggles as it did, and they just fired their offensive coordinator yesterday, John Donovan. And so I don't know though. I think that is maybe goes to the argument that this shouldn't be a suspension because it was not indicative of who he has been. As their coach, I believe him when he says that he just wanted to like break it up. I don't believe him when he says that he was just separating them because you don't need to make.
They were already separated though.
They were already separated, but he had his back turned to Jalen Red, and so he might. I'm giving him the room to believe that he might not have known that space already existed when he went in to create more space, but you just can't do it. That's all it comes down to is there another way? Yes or no? And the answer is a giant yes, all capital letters yes. Then why didn't you?
Yeah. See, okay, so it's clear Jimmy Lake lost his cool in the situation. I can understand that. Like, so I'm not going to call for his firing. I do think that the suspension is probably warranted because when you do go too far, we can't live in a world without consequences. Like for instance, my son got in trouble a couple weeks ago. That didn't change how much I loved him. It didn't change our relationship, but we had a talk. I was like, listen, you stepped across this line. There are consequences for it. And he was like, Dad, you are 100% right. I understand that. So that doesn't mean that he's canceled for the rest of the year, that he's all of this, but the consequences, like just because you made a mistake or say sorry, that doesn't mean that it absolves you from the consequences. So I understand but I do believe that you may be right that Washington is kind of priming this to fire him, but at the same time, you had to understand or realize that this was a possibility after what he did, because in 2020, 2021, 2019, even in you can't do it. You cannot do that. Because what happened if the player had turned around and pushed Jimmy Lake back?
Right. What if he had responded to things being physical in that moment? What if his testosterone had taken over and he decided to be physical back? Then you would have to say that that Jimmy Lake escalated the situation, right?
Correct.
And it would not have been appropriate. It would not have been appropriate for Baraki Fuavai to push Jimmy Lake at
did
all.
A good job with that name, bro.
I tried. But the slap to the helmet, I think he could have gotten away with it if he didn't push him in the back when he turned around.
Correct.
It was the succession of the two things. Because he had a handful of papers. He open hand popped him in the face mask, And that in and of itself would just be like, all right, he's on his player. He's getting his player's attention.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And he probably hit him on accident. Not a big deal. It still would have been a big deal, but like not. It was the push after that.
Right, he's turning around, he's walking away, you
compounded.
shove
Yeah.
him in the back.
Yeah,
right.
it compounded. Like it took what was a 3 or 4 out of 10 and took it up to a 20.
Yeah, and when I initially saw it, I was like, oh man, he pushed that guy in the back, and it was when I rewound it and tweeted the clip that I was like, oh, he got him in the head.
Oh, I saw it immediately. I tweeted out prior to you even tweeting out the video. I tweeted out. I said, "Oh, Jimmy Lake lost his cool. He hitting players on the sideline."
Yeah, and I think that there actually is. You do need to understand your players. So like when Cristobal was getting on his wide receiver, and Rod Gilmore and a bunch of other people had issues with it, it was obvious that Chris Hudson in that moment, like they had a type of a relationship where he understood and they had mutual respect for each other. He got back in the game. He's been getting playing time since then. This we don't really know because Fuavai hasn't spoken for himself, and I think that ultimately he should have some type of say in it. But you do want to let your players know, like, hey, the head coach isn't going to be putting his hands on you regardless because it's not appropriate. But there are some kids and there are some student athletes who respond to that better. And you have to know your team, and you have to know the way that they are that they learn. And there are certain kids who you have to get in their face to get the best out of them. But that's not every kid. And there are certain people who you do have to make physical contact with. And I know this isn't going to be popular, but there are people that you have to make physical contact with to refocus them.
Yes.
Which is why this happens on an NFL field so often. Yes.
Like, hey, snap out of it, bro.
And it works. And if you look at, like, there are people jawing back and forth on an NFL game all the time, and a teammate will come in and he will put his hands on one teammate, and then that teammate will be set off. And then he'll put his hands on another teammate to back him away, and then that will actually reset him. You just have to know which is which. But from the relationship, you also have to have people on the team who are going to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, Oregon had a player that came in and broke up Jalen Redd and Fuavai. But there were Washington players standing around everywhere. Like Jimmy Lake probably wouldn't have had to even be in that situation if somebody on the sideline had grabbed him and pulled him off right away.
Yeah.
You know, if Jimmy Lake thought that it was being handled, I'm not sure he runs in there and tries to handle it himself. But at the end of the day, absolutely, you can't push somebody in the back.
Yeah.
Like it's
silly. No.
You can't.
He went too far, and that's why he's suspended. I mean, I hope he's not fired. But
it has been 42 years since Frank Kush got fired for this.
Yeah.
Frank Kush shook a punter's face mask and hit him in the helmet, and donezo.
And so if that wasn't okay 42 years ago, imagine now. All right. The next thing up, we have in college, staying in the world of college football, there was some nonsense that happened, Ralph. There was nonsense that happened, and it happened by ESPN. They put up this tweet today. SportsCenter. Tide or Bucks? Which would you consider a bigger threat to Georgia? Alabama or Ohio State? This immediately triggered me, obviously, as an Oregon fan. But I'm sitting there like, this is the propaganda machine working. Ralph, if you put up a poll on Twitter, how many options can you put on there?
4. You can put up 4 options on a Twitter poll.
So if you can put up 4 options on a Twitter poll, we are in the college football playoff. Does Alabama look invincible right now?
No. They their wins over a mediocre LSU and a mediocre Florida came by a combined 6 points, less than a touchdown.
Yep. So what about, does Ohio State look invincible?
No, they lost.
They lost
Oregon.
to who, Ralph? To Oregon, right?
Yeah.
So And Oregon has the same amount of losses and is ranked in front of the college football playoff, in front of Ohio State, and they're sandwiched in between Ohio State and Alabama from last week. So why would you not include Oregon in the poll? Why would you not include Oklahoma in the poll? Or even Cincinnati even? Why, Ralph?
Ooh, conspiracy brain. Here you go. So as somebody who has managed social media for like a sports company, what the question you're asking is the one to try to garner the most engagement, right? So putting all 4 teams in that poll would just have people answering the question. It wouldn't have people saying, why didn't you include X or Y? If you cut it down to 2 and you leave 2 teams out, that one is number 2 in the AP poll and 2 is number 3 in last week's college football playoff rankings. If you leave those 2 things out, then you're going to get a lot more engagement. So my thinking is that the tweet was intentional.
Yes.
But if it was unintentional, then it is just reflective of the big school / East Coast bias.
Yeah, but even if it's intentional, so is it intentional in the sense of, okay, because the other fans are going to be upset and then they're going to talk about the tweet? Or because if you include more people on the tweet, you're actually going to get more engagement because then people are going to fight in the comments about it.
Maybe that this would definitely be a question for whoever. I'm sure they have like a rotating crew of 6 or 7 people that are responsible from tweeting from ESPN's accounts. But one of the things that I've been really interested in lately is people who actually have been tracking the things that ESPN posts on its platforms and the frequency with which they post. And one of the things that was repeatedly pointed out was that the SportsCenter account and the ESPN account on both Twitter and Instagram barely mentioned the World Series. And I mean, I know we're in that same situation. We didn't talk about the World Series, but like ESPN is supposed to cover all of it, right? And they weren't talking about the World Series at all. And the more that you're seeing people point this stuff out, the more you're realizing like, oh, it's very possible that they go into these Monday meetings with how they're going to run their socials every single week and say, these are our engagement metrics. These are the things we're going to stick with. And these are the things we're not. And it is possible.
Play the hits, bro.
Yeah. And so it is really, really
play
possible.
The hits and the highlights. Like they show baseball when it's a highlight. Like
yes.
It's not, I mean, because football will give you so many things. I mean, even when you watch Van Pelt show at SVP, when you watch his, he has like bad beats. You get college basketball, college football, NFL. Like you get all of these things in the bad beats. You don't get baseball bad beats.
Yeah, and at the same time, who broadcast the World Series?
Not ESPN.
That's right. It was Fox.
Yep, exactly.
It was Fox, and so the NHL just made a joke about this because I think Gary Bettman made the joke. The commissioner of the NHL said, like, if ESPN is as good at promoting us now that we're back on their platform as they were at freezing us out when we weren't on their platform, then things are going to be really great for us. And I'm paraphrasing Gary Bettman, but like common knowledge within sports that unless ESPN is a rights holder for your specific stuff, they pay way less attention to it. And so the low level of promotion of the World Series was directly correlated to the fact that they weren't the one broadcasting it.
Yep.
Which makes me wonder if ESPN had a stake in the Pac-12, if a tweet like that would
bingo, bango, bongo, buddy, bingo, because they put Pac-12 teams on ESPN at 7:30 at night, an afterthought. So yeah, bro, Yeah, bro. They are that was easy work. That was easy to discern right there. But the college football playoff is here. Who are your top 4 teams, Ralph?
Georgia, number 1, big gap, like enormous gap. They might not win it all, but as it stands right now, it's Georgia number 1, a big gap. And then I would say, man, Oregon, but it'd be like a 2A, 2B situation. Oregon, Alabama, Oklahoma.
Okay. Mine are I have Georgia number 1, Oregon 2, Bama 3, and Ohio State 4. And I know that I have given Cincinnati love on my poll at times, but it's just tough to put them in when they don't have the type of schedule that supports, then they play tough games sometimes against like Tulsa, like this weekend. And if they had blown the doors off them, then I could be like, okay, cool. Yeah, maybe I should give them a little more love, but this is the world that we live in, the haves and the have-nots, and the haves keep on having.
If Notre Dame wins out, can you justify leaving
Nope.
Cincinnati out of the college football playoff?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'm
Notre
not,
Dame,
I'm not saying it would be right, but it'll be justified. So if we have the scenario, I mean, think about this. If Alabama finishes out unscathed, which I'm not sure if they can because they got Auburn, they got a couple of games left that they could lose.
Yeah.
So if they make it to the SEC championship and beat Georgia, then Alabama and Georgia are going to the playoff, right? I think that's fair to say.
A 12-1 Georgia should not be excluded.
Correct. And especially if the team that they lost to already lost. So, you know what I mean? So the 2 of them would be in. Now, if you have 12-1 Oregon, 12-1 Ohio State, 9-0 Oklahoma. I'm sorry, 12-0 Oklahoma. Well, 13-0 Oklahoma, and 13-0 Cincinnati.
With an 11-1 Notre Dame.
Yes. Tell me that that's not a nightmare scenario for the committee.
It's great.
I mean,
it's not great.
You would have 6 teams that have a legit case. I mean, or imagine this, right? Imagine if Alabama loses again. Do you know that puts Texas A&M in the SEC championship, right? So then, if Texas A&M went out and beat Georgia, then what?
That's interesting. That's interesting to me. Because if I would still say a 12-1 Georgia needs to get in, but are you going to second year in a row? Are you going to leave Texas A&M out?
They would have beaten Georgia and Alabama, but then they would have almost lost to Colorado. They would have lost to Arkansas and LSU, whoever else they lost to. Or no, they lost to Arkansas and Kentucky, I think. And both of them may not be ranked.
Man, they really should have. Expansion should have been accelerated.
Yes. Yes, because
oh man.
And this is only going to make it even harder for expansion because conferences are going to want to demand automatic berths because of this year if it works out like that.
Which the ACC needs, and because the Pac-12 has never had anybody go undefeated in conference play ever. Yep. They probably need as well.
Correct. And all right, now on to the NFL, because we talked about earlier about the teams in the AFC, particularly the Raiders, who were off to a good start and then chaos has ensued. Like not even on the field. It's been like chaos outside the building. And now I will ask you, Ralph, who is it since the AFC? You have the Bills, who are now 5-3, who we thought were going to run away with the division, but now the Patriots are 5-4. The AFC North is a disaster aside from And well, I shouldn't call it a disaster. It's just a logjam of near 500 teams besides Baltimore. Tennessee is running away with that division in the AFC South. The Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs, and Broncos all have 5 wins. So the question is, Ralph, who is the best team in the AFC?
My instincts want to say Ravens because they're tied for the best record, and they've really been special on offense at times this year. But their record includes an overtime win against the Colts, an overtime win against the Vikings, a 1-point win against the struggling Chiefs, a 2-point win against the still winless Detroit Lions.
Yep.
So, I mean, it is feasible that the Ravens, who are 7-2 right now, 6-2, 7-2,
6-2.
Okay, it is feasible right now that the 6-2 Ravens could also be 2-6.
Yes.
It would have taken 4 things to happen differently for them to be 2-6, and then I want to say you want to look at Tennessee and be like, oh, they've continued what they were doing last year, but I know that they got blown out at home by the Cardinals, and they're 7-1 since then. But defensively, they still haven't looked good. They still start slow.
And
now
they lost to the
Derrick
Jets,
Henry.
bro. They lost to the Jets.
Right. So you've got the better teams in the AFC. They carry a loss to the Jets, and now the Buffalo Bills have a touchdownless loss at Jacksonville.
Bro. So all of that to say is this, is that the teams in the AFC clearly felt bad for the Kansas City Chiefs and wanted to make sure that they had, that they had the opportunity to come back and make the playoffs. They're all doing Kansas City a favor because if they were in the NFC's not doing anybody any favors. Dallas, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Arizona, the Rams, dude, they're making it tough on everybody. If you want in the playoffs, you're going to have like 11 or 12 wins.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. Honestly, if the Super Bowl champion comes out of the AFC this year, I will be shocked.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Yeah, because because then they would only have to win one game where the NFC's got to run the gauntlet to get in.
That's true. You could be pretty beat up. But I was going to say, then again, we could probably consider Denver one of the worst teams in the AFC and Dallas one of the best teams in the NFC. And at one point, Denver was up 30-0 yesterday.
Like what? What, bro? I can't make heads or tails about what's going on. But you get stupid results in the NFL sometimes. We're just like,
Absolutely.
How is this even humanly possible? But there we are. And now on to something that was actually very, very sad and unexpected. The Astroworld Music Festival, that's Travis Scott's festival. He's from Houston. It's huge. I knew some people that were going, and they ended up not being able to go because they didn't have a babysitter. And so they were just going to go on Saturday. They had VIP passes, everything, and they would have been there in that mess. Turns out 8 people have died, bunch of other people injured, and there were reports initially about people being stabbed with hypodermic needles and some people being crushed. I mean, like, I think the hypodermic needle stuff has been debunked now, but not even sure. Ralph, this was and now Travis Scott and Drake and all these people are being sued. The people are like, well, they didn't stop the concert on time. And you're like, how do you stop a concert with 50,000 people when people are yelling? Like, it could have just been a fight or whatever. Like, I don't know, man. What was your take on what you saw and what you've heard about Astroworld?
I was a festival kid. I went around the country going to different and they weren't like Astroworld. They were like Spirit
I've
West
never been
Coast
to a music festival ever.
Okay. It's one of those things that, like, when you're young sounds like such a great idea, and then you hit a certain age where you realize that is not a good time. Like, a good time is going to a show where all of the money was spent on the production value. It lasts about 3 hours and you go home taking in that singular experience, and you have an assigned seat. Like arenas, stuff like that. Like, that's a good time. But when you're a kid, you're like, oh, more is better. Right? So let's go see 20 artists over a 2-day period in a place that might not have adequate bathrooms, water. You might run out of sunscreen. I had the worst inner thigh chafing in my entire life at a at a music festival, a week-long music festival in Wilmar, Minnesota, when I was in my early 20s. 104 degrees and humid, cooked my entire body. It was terrible, and I was there as a chaperone. So I mean, like, festivals are terrible. They're just genuinely bad, but you don't know until you know. There is just a large space to stand. And the earlier you get there, the better chance you're going to be closer to the stage. People pack in like sardines and they wait for 4 or 5 hours without water just for the show to start, or even for the opener to start playing. It's people want to move. It's sweaty, it's cramped.
Yep.
A lot of places have mosh
50,000
pits.
people there.
Yeah. A lot of places have mosh pits, which can be like a really cool cathartic experience, or it can be extremely dangerous, depending on the type of idiot that is participating in the mosh pit. The temperatures obviously can have an adverse effect. The crowding can limit access of first responders. Usually there's a medical tent by the stage, and they have the ability to pull the people out of the crowd over the rope to the medical tent. But if it's a lot of people at the same time and they're passing out and you don't want to move them, or you don't have the ability to move them, then the medics have to come into the area where the crowd is. There's not a lot of upside at festivals.
Especially when something goes wrong, because some of these people got trampled. They were pushed into the barriers with people trying to get over. And like that, I can't even imagine, because people are trying to pull their friends out and all it. Dude, it was a scary situation. And then you saw the people getting chest compressions. I mean, and honestly, when I first heard about the hypodermic needles, all that stuff, it reminded me of like a TV show. I was like, bro, this is like a terrorist event. But then understanding that may not be true and all of this, it still made me wary of like, hold up, is festival going a good idea unless I have some sort of alternative seating, like a VIP situation where I don't have to be amongst everybody else? That's probably the only way that I would go, because after understanding what happened with the Astroworld Festival, and Astroworld is like the hip hop version of like a rock concert where they have mosh pits and all this stuff. It's a very rowdy crowd. And then knowing what happened in Las Vegas at the country music thing, dude, I don't know if this, and I know that terrorism shouldn't, or this stuff shouldn't deter from what we do, but I'm 40 now, bro. Like, I don't want any part of this. Like, I want part of the concert. Like, I want the concert. Like you were saying, I want the concert. But the festival, I think I'm out.
Live music is an incredible experience. You'll notice festivals are mostly a game for the young. If you saw that video of people breaking in through the side, flooding in that were outside in line, and they broke down a fence, that was all young people trampling over each other.
Yeah.
Watching that clip alone was like a real kick in the balls to the whole "children are our future" theory. Because it was just
I was out there. I was out when I saw that. I was like, yeah, I don't want to be there. Like,
yeah, it is a lot of people being extremely selfish, just wanting to take part in some hedonistic process of listening pleasure. And it rules are rule. I hate to be the get off my lawn guy about this, but if you don't have a ticket, then it is what it is, right?
Yep.
If you don't If you don't have a great
those people did not have tickets.
right, and if you don't have a
or
great
they were trying to get a better initial spot.
right, or if you don't have a good initial spot, like you don't need to be bullying past people or anything like that. If you don't have space like around you, like even then, like this whole thing of like there's still a damn pandemic going
Yep.
on. And
So
I know
So the question is, how do you fix this? Because if you're going to have something where 50,000 people are going to be, it's already an issue if there is some sort of commotion, if there's a fight or anything, like people are going to get trampled. So how do you make sure that people have enough space?
well, when it's a guy like Travis Scott who is right now like the it thing.
Yeah, one of the biggest musical acts in the world.
Yeah, a lot of people's first concert is going to be seeing Travis Scott with tens of thousands of other people. You don't understand concert culture and you don't understand concert etiquette if it's your first time out there and you're a 17-year-old. And some of these people that died were teenagers, which is terrible. When I was going to a lot of shows, I was going to a lot of shows with people who had also been to a lot of shows. And you get to a point where you understand the rules. And you get to a point where if the artist is in on everybody having a good time, so long as everybody follows the rules. I'm sure you saw there's clips of Chester Bennington and Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park telling everybody to like take care of each other. There's all these clips of different shows of them stopping the show to remind everybody that like, if we're not all having a good time, then nobody's having a good time.
Yeah, because we will stop the show. See, I do think that artists have a responsibility there on some level because they do control it. Because if they say, yo, if there's certain stuff going on, we're going to stop the show. Period.
Right. And Travis Scott deleted a tweet that said, like, after everything sold out a few months ago, he deleted a tweet where he said, no, we're letting the wild ones in. A guy had come up on the stage and he was yelling, these are people's kids. You have to stop. Like, we got to get them help. And Travis Scott responded by saying, no, you guys know what you came here for. Like that shows somebody who does not have a full understanding. Like, people are dead. Like, this isn't just like a story where some people got hurt.
I think he got hit with a dose of reality. Like, so while I appreciate the wild ones, I have a responsibility because this is my money, my livelihood, and these lawsuits are going to result in him losing money.
Right.
Because he said some of those things. You
had first responders out there, sirens on, and you had his fans getting up onto the vehicles and dancing on the vehicles while it was just like one giant hedonistic mess. And part of me is like, man, I went to all these music festivals as a kid. It really helped. Like, it was a great thing for me to be involved in when I was a teenager and into my 20s. But would I let my kid, like, after watching something like this, would I let my kids do what I did, which is drive all the way up to Seattle when I was 17 years old with a group of 20 friends to go to probably not. Yep. Probably not. I can't account for what other people doing or what the festival is doing to make sure that people are taken care of. Like, I guarantee you there is no space that is less comfortable than being in an enormous pit full of 10,000 people who all have 99-degree body temperatures, and you have to stand there for 5 hours before the show even starts. I've been there. I've been there for much lesser known artists than Travis Scott. I've also been for artists who know the deal and make sure that everybody's taking care of everybody. And I know that there's people saying, well, he stopped the show a couple of times. He tried, he did what he could. Well, you look out and you see sirens and ambulances and stuff everywhere. Like, for your own self-preservation, stop what you're doing and figure out what the hell's going on.
He could have gotten hurt. So yeah, no, it could have been a lot worse, even though it was already tremendously bad. All right. The last thing up, Ralph's friend and our friend, Big Bird, started a controversy. Big Bird from Sesame Street started a controversy, and Ralph's guy, Ted Cruz, is the person who jumped. What?
My guy. Okay.
Ted Cruz jumped in and what? Oh, I forgot his tweet. um, he jumped in and essentially says that this is the woke, that this is woke, and this is Big Bird going too far, and all of this.
Indoctrinating your children.
Yes, indoctrinating your children
by encouraging vaccination.
And this is where people are so lame and so stupid, because Big Bird has been touting people getting vaccinated since the 70s. Since the 70s. This is like where like people were like, oh yeah, athletes now way too woke talking about vaccines. Muhammad Ali was promoting vaccines, bro. Like, what are we talking about? Like, this is where when people have zero sense of history and they get to talking, this is why history repeats itself. Because the real history and the honest conversations don't happen.
I don't understand getting mad about Sesame Street. Like, do you not know what Sesame Street is? Sesame Street is a children's show in which they deal with real life situations on top of elementary, basic, beginner level educational topics. It's not all the count. It's not all the color of the day, number of the day, letter of the day stuff. Every episode has a theme, and they've gotten into stuff on Sesame Street. They get into everything, like literally everything that is culturally relevant. Well, come on now. No, but for real, the first time that I ever saw any show talk about having an incarcerated parent, Sesame Street, because there's a lot of kids with incarcerated parents.
Yep.
And I have goosebumps right now talking about it. Like, for a show to go out of its way to make those kids feel seen and not alone, like Sesame Street has always been at the forefront of like trying to make your kid feel capable and seen. That's it. That's like been the whole agenda of Sesame Street on public broadcasting. But when you have it in your mind, or if you're like Ted Cruz and you don't actually have any system of values whatsoever and you just like it when people are outraged, if you have it in your mind that like anything progressive or anyone that exists in media is a progressive, therefore anything they produce has an agenda meant to shake your kids from the foundation that you're trying to build for them, if you carry with you that paranoia throughout your life, you're going to be upset by a lot of things. You're going to feel like, wow, this children's puppet show is taking away my autonomy as a parent. It's not. You still get to parent your kid. You don't have to argue with a fictional character on Twitter in order to get your point across. And I know that Ted Cruz has no shame. Like, I know
none.
that.
Dude, Big Bird should have tweeted back, I can't tell you how to get to I can tell you how to I can tell you how to get to Sesame Street. I can't tell you how to fly to Cancun when the rest of your state is in trouble and you're an elected official there.
I just do you have a problem with it, George? Like, if a children's TV show tries to impart some type of values that maybe are set apart from the values that you're trying to impart to your kids, do you get upset?
No, we just don't watch the show, or we deal like big because here's the thing is that shows are not. So if they talk about different values that I want to teach my kids, I don't mind it, because now that opens up a situation. I mean, it's different if it's every single episode and all that stuff, because then that's not a show we're going to watch. But if it's an episode, that means that this is stuff out in the real world that we have to then talk about and discuss, because you can't, as a parent, act like stuff's not happening out in the world. Like, whether you're a Christian parent, Jewish parent, whatever values or system, whether it's religious, not religious, whatever, that you're raising your children with, you can't act like that opposing views or dissenting opinions don't exist, or alternative lifestyles, whatever your lifestyle is, an alternative to that.
Right.
that you can't act like that doesn't exist, because these things are out there for your kids to see. So like it's like people who tell their kids don't have sex, right? But then never talk to them about sex. They act like sex is bad and evil. No, God created sex. Like, it's to be used, and if you teach your kids whatever you teach them about it, just ignoring it and pretending like it's not happening, or that they're not having sexual feelings as teenagers and all of that, that's idiocy, bro. Because if you're not talking to them about it, somebody else is.
Right. And so, it's also, there's a couple of things here. Thing number one, you know how there are a lot of kids out there that their only meal of the day, or one of their only meals of the day, comes from school?
Yep.
There is a giant void of people who aren't being taught any type of value system at all.
Yep.
And for those kids, things like Sesame Street can fill a little bit of that gap. It doesn't mean it's going to be what they need, but a kid like that is going to watch Sesame Street and maybe actually develop some type of value system where there might not have been one.
Correct.
If you have a different value system than what is being shown on television to your children, then that is an opportunity for you. Any single time that any of that stuff comes up, that's an opportunity for you to actually fortify what the values of your home are going to be. Yep. You get to determine that. You can either do it through omission and make sure that they don't watch those things, or you can watch those things with them. And when those things come up, that can give you the ability to actually play out a situation in the real world of how you would want your kids to deal with that thing. Now, I also understand as a parent, sometimes there are too many opportunities to talk to your kids and you're just effing tired. But what you don't want to be is, you don't want to be the parent that says, oh, Big Bird is tweeting about vaccines. P.S. There are no children on Twitter, so this is meant for adults to comfort them on the idea of getting their kids vaccinated. Has nothing to do with trying to indoctrinate your kids whatsoever. But if you are somebody who does not want your kids, for whatever reason, getting this vaccine, and you believe that they're trying to like have some type of Jedi mind trick to get your kids confused about how you feel about what they should do, but you also don't apply that to your own life. Like that night, you're firing up the reboot of Dexter and watching him stab people. Like, when we talk about the stuff that you're putting into your own mind and body. So you're saying that like you can't be influenced, but they can, right? I just, the whole thing is so corny to me. You have the opportunity to impart your value system to your kids. If you're upset at something that the National Public Radio, National Public Broadcasting System, or anything like that is producing in their content for children, then take control of that. Don't dog whistle on the internet. And I know that no one has to be convinced that Ted Cruz is only in it for himself and only believes in the culture war insofar as chaos is a ladder to get him wherever he wants to go. I know those things. But in the event that anybody that can be influenced by listening to Wrighster or Wrong is listening to this right now, thank God for Big Bird. Because it gives you an opportunity to have this discussion as a family. Everything is a test. Don't fail this one.
Yep. Man. All right. There, you guys, that's Right or Wrong for the day. I think we missed an opportunity to talk about something because we had a lot of great stuff to talk about today. And maybe we'll talk about it on Friday, like why we choose to drive home in the dark with daylight savings time.
I just had my first daylight savings time, and it is confusing. Yeah, I don't care for it. First ever daylight savings time.
All right, peace out. Catch you guys.